Hello and welcome, Exiles, for the Spirit Walker final update. All the tools you will need to progress this character and keep you on track. We're 6 hours to go, and for the first time ever, we have a tree and the ability to set up things before the league, and it's freaking awesome too because GGG also added the .build option. And how this works, pretty simple. You click download build file, it'll put a mybuild.build in your downloads folder. You simply copy that and put it in the build planner section of your folder. That is not there yet, but I think it'll be there once you update with the new patch. So that's how that works, and that should allow you to select the drop down of being like, I'm following this version of the tree, I believe is how it will work. So what I've done is I've set up, number one is Twister leveling, because I just think this is the best way to level. You do not have to do this. This is just what I thought was the fastest way to get to swapping into Companion in Act 3. You can maybe try to swap earlier. They made the Companion gem available at level 22. I think it's a bit risky. I don't feel like there's enough passives there, so I'm going to just play it safe and try to swap in Act 3. Hopefully that is a good place to do it. Now, I want to stress, if you're playing this build, you need to save your gold from Act 2 to 3, because if you look at the trees, when you're talking about this tree versus this tree, you'll notice that we have a ton of passives over here that just disappear, and that is why you need to save your gold, is so you can do the respec. Roughly around 20,000 gold. I did this a couple times, is about how much I needed to do a full respec out of like the Twister tree to supporting companions. And that's roughly what I recommend doing. Another thing I want to stress right now is, if you're wondering, what are these green, what are these red passives? These are weapon set passives for us to snapshot the power of parry. Parry is a debuff you can place on an enemy that makes them take 50% more attack damage, and a lot of these nodes scale that debuff magnitude. You can end up making the enemies take almost double damage. It's just a little bit of like, hey, if we want to deal way more single target during bosses, that's what this is for. This is for if you don't want to deal with parry and you're saying, I'm okay with dealing half the damage, just do all the red passives as your normal tree. Like, that's the priority passives. That's the stuff that actually supports companions. The green passives are us just snapshotting the weapon set of parry. And one thing I want to note here is you only are setting weapon set of parry to 2, and then you want to have one other skill at weapon set 1, something like Frost Bomb or some other utility skill, or just make sure you manually weapon swap back. You don't want to have the situation where you parry the boss, you apply all that extra damage, and then you stick on weapon set 2 and you're missing all these other damage nodes that are quite important. It's just something you want to make sure either have a skill you set to weapon set 1, or make sure you manually weapon swap back. You just need a all you need for this to work is a buckler in your offhand, and I'd recommend just get some random trash scepter that has the same amount of spirit as your main hand damage scepter, because the reason being is, if you weapon swap and you lose spirit, your skeletons or something's going to get desummoned, which means, for example, if you proc a pain offering, you weapon swap, the pain offering could get removed. So in your second weapon set, you just need a buckler and a random scepter that has enough spirit to match your scepter in your main hand. It doesn't have to be a good one, just one that has the same amount of spirit. So I just want to mention that for weapon swap passives. Now, afterwards, I have a tree here where we're basically filling out the most useful nearby damage nodes for companion, and we grab basically every single companion damage node close by is pretty much what this tree ends up being. Later on in the interludes, we start speccing out a little bit more for more defensive value, like going into some evasion and deflection rating. I'd recommend going for try to like make sure your priority gearing is evasion gear pieces with life and capping resistances. That's the most important thing to do early. Later on, we might try to do potentially Ghost Dance and do a little bit of hybrid ES to try to help satiate. The biggest issue I see with a life-based characters is a small base EHP pool, so if we could satiate that with getting a little bit of extra ES barrier, making sure we have life on every gear piece, that should help us a lot defensively, combined with the companion damage diversion. Next up on the things I want to talk about is the support gems. These support gems are just early game support gems. I didn't put, well, I guess I have Romero's Requile just because I want to mention it's a really strong support lineage gem. But for the most part, I try to keep it really basic support gems early on. For example, hulking minions right here, we are not going to use after we anoint the gigantic notable on the tree, which applies the gigantic buff to all these guys without us having to use a support gem. That'll give us that support gem. Another thing I want to notice is later on we can potentially get this node here, Warlord Berserker. Allies in your presence regen rage per second if you've gained rage recently. All you would need is like a rage on hit with some random attack, proc that every now and then. I could even have Rage on hit on the parry, and that would proc it, and that will give the allies / the companions Rage, in which case we could swap Rage 3 out for a different support gem. You get the idea, but I'm just trying to keep it basic to begin with, and I'll update it as we progress the character. So yeah, that's the main idea going on with support gems and the trees. I will be fine-tuning this. I don't think these endgame trees are going to be what we're going to use as the final product, because there's min-maxing we can do along those lines. Another thing I want to mention about the trees real quick here is you'll notice at some point we spec these reservation nodes. I want to point out this because at the very beginning when you first do the swap, I could be wrong on my math, but I'm pretty sure without grabbing reservation nodes, we should have enough space to do at least one skeleton plus the rare tame beast plus the unique tame beast. Later on, towards the interludes, I think it's worth speccing out the reservation nodes when you get access to the skeletal cleric, which is a lower spirit reservation thing that can also heal your other companions, but also doing like another cheap skeleton specifically for the muster buff. Muster gets 7% more damage per like distinct reviving minion type you have out there. So if you get a little bit of extra reservation space, getting these on there is pretty decent. It might also be worth considering more defensive auras. I'll have to feel that out as I play it, but that's what's going on here. Another thing is you get, when you have additional skeletons, you can sacrifice up to 2 instead of 1 for more buff effect from your pain offering, which gives you quite a bit of attack speed and % damage scaling. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on there with the tree. I know I'm going fast, but I'm just trying to make sure I cover most of the important parts. Another really important thing I want to mention is your rare beast tame. I would recommend going for the boar just because it's a consistent spawn. It's in the infested barrens. In the camp, there's a boar and a roly-poly guy that always spawn rare. Do make sure you capture the boar. The roly-poly walks kind of slow, whereas the boar has a medium pace. I was going to go for the quadrilla in the jungle ruins, but the rare quadrilla in the jungle ruins has the fast movement speed modifier, which GGG made unable to roll hasted or haste aura. And the key here is we want the haste aura. We want these this rare tame to basically be giving power to both ourselves to be able to walk around faster and power to our main big heavy hitter, the big monkey. So that's what we're going for there. So yeah, that is the TLDR on what's going on. Leveling is Twister, save your gold, respect a companion, go grab yourself a haste or a rare tame. You can do that even before you do the second lab. That's probably when I'm going to do it. And then keep an eye out on making sure you're upgrading your gear, looking for gem levels in the helmet, amulet, and scepter slot. Early game before we get Katha's Blessing, something like a Trench Timber could be really strong for the +2 minions, so something like that could be an early upgrade to look for. I have a buy list right here. All you need for this to work is Control-C this, code right here, and then you need the Better Trading extension, which all this requires is, it works on Firefox and Chrome. I don't know what all browsers it works on, but it works for those two. Import folder, Control-V. This is what should pop up. And then after you import it, you'll have these options here. Some weighted sum searches, for example, helmet. I have a list of mods that are valuable, and I say, hey, you really want a plus minion skill if you're going to go for a helmet purchase. Same thing with the scepter, same thing with the amulet. Those are your priority stats for giving yourself damage. And also, it should give survivability to your companions because higher level means they're going to have more HP, means they're going to be tankier. So yeah, that's the sort of stuff going on here. I didn't put any like super min-max upgrades because I wanted to keep the buy list kind of succinct to the most important, cheaper early upgrades. But obviously, if you have a interest in getting the more powerful upgrades later on, that's something that you could maybe try to do. Buying stuff early is generally cheaper if you can get to it. But I think prioritizing your main upgrades first is the way to go. And yeah, I'll be importing better gear sets than this. This is all like pretty much the same gear set as you can see. But I'll be upgrading or importing the gear set of my character as I progress it. Okay, I think I've gone over most of the key details of the character. I will include a link to a leveling run as well if you wanted to see what Twister leveling looks like, if you want to look over that before the league launch. We're running out of time, and it's coming in today. Hopefully you guys have a good league launch. Take care, Exiles, and peace out.